Mainstream archaeologists have long rejected the notion that extraterrestrial beings had a hand in creating the pyramids of Egypt. Theologians and religious scholars refute the idea that stories of the Bible or the Mahabharata could be describing alien encounters. And governments throughout history have officially denied reports that the Earth has been visited by flying saucers. But on July 8, 1947, a UFO sighting was reported that even the United States government had trouble denying. Why? Because this time, the report was issued by the U.S. Army.
I'm walking on the Foster Ranch between Corona and Roswell, New Mexico, not far from what is called the debris field right over that hill. And that debris field refers to headlines back in July of 1947 about a disc, one of those mysterious UFOs, actually crashing right out here.
One night in early July 1947, a major thunderstorm rolled across New Mexico. The next morning, rancher Mac Brazel went out to check on the damage.
Mac Brazel went out to make sure everything was where it was supposed to be, and he came across this really extensive area of debris, stuff he had never seen before. He brought it to the local sheriff's office. In 1947, Roswell was home to Roswell Army Airfield. The sheriff called the base sent Major Jess Marcel, and at that point it basically became a military site as they gathered up every bit of debris they could find.
In their initial report, Army officials made a vague claim of having started the recovery of the debris sometime last week. But why didn't the Army report their findings right away? And why were they so ambiguous about the timeline?
Now, one of the biggest things we have is the newspaper of July 8th, 1947, where Colonel Blanchard issued an order to Lieutenant Walter Haut, who was the public information officer, saying basically we have in our possession a flying saucer. It's being taken to Fort Worth to higher headquarters.
Roswell was a real turning point for ufology. I think that was because the military for the first time admitted that they had a crashed disk. And because it was admitted at the time, of course, it caused a sensation.
Then July 9th, General Ramey issued a press release saying, no, it was a weather balloon. And that started the best documented UFO cover-up ever.
Army officials referred to the debris as being part of a flying disc. Internal memos even referenced the crash site as having victims. So why, less than 24 hours later, did they suddenly decide that what they had retrieved was nothing more than a weather balloon? Although Blanchard and Ramey stuck by the revised story, Lieutenant Haut stood by the contents of his initial report his entire life. And those who believe him think modern technology may have recently provided the irrefutable evidence they have been looking for.
When Major Marcel took the debris to Fort Worth and General Ramey spread it out to give this press conference that it was a weather balloon, there was a picture taken, and in his hand is a piece of paper. And it's a very little piece of paper, and this has been blown up, and it is a memo. There is a leading researcher in the field who is pulling the words out of this. And they include things like team at Fort Worth, forwarded victims of the wreck, pod or pan. And so every year that the technology improves, General Ramey may be the one to solve it.
Bob Wood, a researcher in UFOs, had received leaked documents in 1996 and shared them with me and a few others. This document, called the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, with a War Department stamp dated July 22nd, 1947. The most disturbing aspect of this investigation was that there were other bodies found not far from Landing Zone 1 the Mac-Brazel site between Corona and Roswell, that looked as if they had been dissected as you would a frog. It does not define, were those bodies human? Were those bodies non-human? But suddenly, for me, this electric jolt that came into holding that document and reading at the end of the 90s what would explain finally that our government knew that extraterrestrial biological entities from somewhere else in the cosmos was interacting with our planet for a very long time.
5 years after Roswell, the United States Air Force coined the term unidentified flying object, or UFO. In the decades since, thousands of UFOs have been reported, photographed, and videotaped all over the world.
Oh my God, dude. Perhaps one of the biggest, most revolutionary pieces of technology to change our view of UFOs and flying saucers is the video cam.
Whoa, I'm getting a series of lights right there. I got it.
You only have to look at what happened in Phoenix, Arizona in March of 1997 when these huge flying boomerangs went right across Phoenix, right through the whole valley, heading south to the Mexico border. These were all caught on cameras. Network news caught these. Local news caught these. You saw these on CNN. You saw these on Larry King.
Oh, there it is, over to the left.
Wow. And yes, people called them flares. Of course they did. But the fact is, when you see something with your own eyes...
Look, dude, Pat, you got it?
I see it. Even if it's on a video camera, suddenly your perspective changes.
And that middle one is moving quick. It's only the beginning, you guys.
So now, according to recent polls, Gallup polls and Roper polls, well over 50% of Americans believe that flying saucers exist, and close to 50% believe that the government knows that flying saucers exist and that the government is hiding that fact.
In England's southwest county of Wiltshire stands Rudloe Manor. On the surface, it appears to be nothing more than a quaint English manor house. But deep beneath this structure lie an astounding 2.2 million square feet of vast caverns divided into many smaller chambers.
For years, it was home to a group called the Provost and Security Services. They're kind of like the James Bonds of the British Royal Air Force. But back in the 1990s, and certainly going back to the 1950s, the Provost and Security Services were heavily involved in UFO investigations.
In 2007, the Ministry of Defense announced that Rudloe Manor was no longer in use by the military. But if that's true, why are the grounds surrounded by chain-link fences, monitored by security cameras, and even protected by guard dogs? To find the answers, in January of 2017, ancient astronaut theorist Georgios Tsoukalos traveled to the protected boundaries of Rudloe Manor.
There it is.
Joining him in his search for the truth was Nick Pope.
Wow. We're here. During your time at the MOD, what did you learn about this place or any type of UFO cases that may have happened around this area?
Well, this whole area is rich in UFO sightings. UFO sightings were investigated by staff based here at Rudloe Manor, but for years we denied it. We told Parliament, the media, and the public that these things were of no interest, that Rudloe Manor had no involvement in this, and yet when the files were declassified, it turned out that people were right.
Right here?
Right here.
Okay.
And so this building really was at the heart of Britain's secret UFO research, and particularly the underground facilities below us. And the UFO community alleges that that's where the UK keeps its alien hardware. Crashed UFOs, all sorts of secrets and research and investigation and projects went on from this particular facility.
So then this was basically considered, or is considered, the UK's Area 51.
Absolutely right. Even rumors of alien bodies.
Alien bodies? Could the ultimate proof of government contact with extraterrestrials be hidden in the tunnels right beneath Nick and Giorgio's feet? While Rudloe Manor is completely inaccessible, another entrance to the underground facilities is found 2 miles away at the equally secretive installation known as the Corsham Computer Center, or CCC. Despite the fact that it too is not open to the public, ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos asked Nick Pope to take him to the CCC for a first-hand look at the installation.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
As a former employee of the Ministry of Defense, Nick did not feel it was appropriate for him to approach the facility himself without clearance.
I'll see you later, Nick.
Yes.
Take care. Here we are, the CCC. The lights are on. And just like Nick explained, it's got barbed wire, it is fenced down, it's impenetrable. Clearly this entrance goes underground.
Within minutes of Giorgio's arrival at the security gate, the crew is met by a military police unit.
I'm asked the million-dollar question. What are you doing down here?
Unfortunately, the situation ends with filming being halted. But why? Is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, that Rudloe Manor is not only used for secret government UFO investigations, but is housing extraterrestrial technology and even alien bodies?
Whatever's going on down there, it's big. Still to this day, thousands of people work there, and yet you can't get any real information about what they're doing. It's absolutely off limits.
The coast of Florida, January 2015. The crew of a Navy F-18 fighter jet fly into restricted airspace and encounter an airborne object directly in their flight path. They aim their forward-looking infrared camera at the object and capture it in flight.
F-18s were chasing this thing, and they couldn't catch it. The UAP is doing things that modern aerodynamic vehicles can't do.
The pilots in pursuit of the unidentified craft observed that it performed unusual maneuvers unlike any military aircraft they had ever witnessed, and all while flying at high velocities.
One of the impressive aspects of it is that it's moving against the wind, and you can hear the pilots say this.
Look at that thing, dude. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west.
It doesn't lose speed, and it rotates mechanically against the wind. This gimbal footage is one of the rare pieces of physical evidence that is corroborated directly by individuals who are out there on the East Coast documenting these things. It is highly impressive.
Now, modern day aircraft can yaw and pitch, and they can roll, but they can't simply pitch straight up and continue to move forward into the line of flight. This thing does that. It's moving extremely fast, and it's accelerating much faster than the F-18s can. So that in itself is a feat that mankind has yet to accomplish.
We tried to vet this for a long time. What's uncomfortable is that we haven't figured it out, that we don't know whose technology this is. If you can't identify someone that's far more advanced than you technologically, Houston, we have a problem.
Navy video of the incredible encounter was made public in December 2017, and the object was dubbed Gimbal due to its ability to rotate on an axis. But for ancient astronaut theorists, Just as intriguing as the way it moves is the object's shape.
The craft itself is an acorn-shaped craft. Immediately, that's reminiscent of what the ancient Indian text described as the Vimana, which were acorn-shaped craft.
In the Mahabharata and in many of the ancient Vedic texts, they speak about the so-called Vimanas. The Vimanas were flying vehicles with which to reach the celestial realm.
In the ancient Sanskrit epics of India, there are highly detailed descriptions of the Vimana, which carried the gods and other important figures through the sky, and sometimes to other planets. The acorn-shaped craft were even incorporated at the very top of many Hindu temples. And some researchers believe they also inspired similar Buddhist structures called stupa.
If we go to Indonesia and look at Borobudur, where we have 194 stupas sitting in concentric circles, each stupa, in my opinion, represents a type of flying craft, because stupa actually means celestial chariot, or a way with which to reach the celestial realm. And they are in the shape of the so-called Vimanas.
Often the Vimana were described as war machines, armed with incredible weapons.
There are tales of flying craft that could defy gravity and fly at extraordinary speeds that defy the laws of physics. These were military in usage, had powerful engines and powerful weapons. In these battles, missiles would fire that could wipe out cities. These were the earliest stories we have of flying military craft.
In the Indian text, the Vimanas are the chariots or craft of the gods. They were clearly a method of transportation that could take the gods from place to place, country to country, and even to other planets. They're sometimes described as bright clouds. Some of them are 7 stories tall.
In 1895, Sanskrit scholar Shivkar Tampada decided to fashion an aircraft based solely on information gleaned from the ancient Indian writings about the Vimana. While the story is hotly disputed, he allegedly tested the craft in front of an audience of thousands of people on a beach in Bombay.
The legend has it that he flew for like 30 seconds at 1,500 feet. The Wright brothers only went 120 feet for 12 seconds. But even more exciting is that this is technology based on a scripture written thousands of years before mankind ever had the idea of heavier than air flight. How is this possible?
According to the Hindu text, the crafts were mind-controlled, able to change direction and pitch and travel at high speeds, defying our current knowledge of aeronautical physics.
What's really cool is that these modern-day UFO videos show that these vehicles are capable of ridiculous maneuvers, that they can accelerate at the drop of a dime, or they can just stop or change direction immediately at G-forces that we could not survive. In the Vimanika Shastra, which describes what these Vimanas were capable of doing, the exact same descriptions exist. The fact that we have similar stories in ancient times illustrates to me something similar has happened.
Rachel, Nevada, September 2019. The Storm Area 51 event comes to an end without incident.
Here in Rachel, people were fearing the worst.
And so everybody's coming out here to see what was going to happen. We're out here to make it a safe event for everybody.
I think the order has come down. We do not want mass arrests here. We do not want trouble.
You know, they had a few arrests, and other than that, they didn't have any incidents at all. Everybody behaved.
When we look at all the disinformation circling the event of storming Area 51, from the media, from the government, from social media, it made it a convoluted mess that was easily something that most people just chose to avoid.
Amid what some consider to be a concerted government effort to intimidate UFO believers, many doubt whether the Storm Area 51 movement can last, while others hope that this small beginning will blossom into something much larger.
What we might find when we look back on this is that this was the beginning of some sort of cultural movement, something that will grow year on year. We might find that it starts as just maybe a small one-off event, but evolves into something with global recognition.
You're all part of this. Become active participants, not passive observers.
And it becomes a mainstream event.
I think a lot of people, particularly due to pop culture, know of Area 51, and they accept it as gospel that there really are UFOs and aliens out there. That sort of demonstrates how the public is coming around to the idea that alien life is a reality.
For some people, the events were a good time and a fun weekend. It could turn a handful of people into the next decade's prominent researchers on UFOs and government secrecy and flying saucers and government corruption and the military-industrial state.
We are at a revolutionary moment. You've got an entire generation of young people now who have been galvanized, and they will be looking for legitimate, credible news about high strangeness on this planet in numbers that have not happened before.
For many, the gates of Area 51 are both real and symbolic. Real in the sense that the gates may hide evidence of an actual alien presence on Earth. Symbolic in that they represent the government's wider determination to cling to secrecy for as long as possible.
The U.S. government has kept so many secrets from the people that I think that's, a major driving force for people to come here. I don't know if this is a movement that we're seeing, but people want to know the truth, right? And they want to know if there's secrets being kept from us. And I think if that forms a movement, that would be awesome.
What's behind those gates is one of the last mysteries. The bottom of the ocean, Area 51, and aliens.
I think the only way to get the government to come up with answers is to keep the pressure on. Keep demanding answers. A new generation has to continue to demand answers and do what the past generation failed to achieve.
In the end, some believe that the harsh treatment once suffered by Bob Lazar is being repeated today in the government's response to the Storm Area 51 movement. They fear that under the onslaught of official intimidation, the drive for answers will slowly fade, and the secrets of Area 51 will remain hidden. But others are determined to make this modest event the beginning of a mass movement that will ultimately force open the gates of secrecy to finally reveal that both in the universe at large and right here on Earth, we are not alone. Scottsdale, Arizona, February 2019. Investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe arrives to conduct an interview with a former Navy flight engineer who has come forward with information about strange events he witnessed during his time in Antarctica.
This is where one of the most important whistleblowers in my career lives. And he has decided that he is willing to work with me to tell the truth about what happened with him in Antarctica. This is the kind of breakthrough I have been hoping, that people with real solid military information would start coming forward, and we would start learning the facts and the truth in spite of government policies of denial.
I knew things that I felt needed to be put out in the mainstream.
Brian, as he prefers to be called, requested that his face and voice be obscured to protect his identity. His unit was based on the southern tip of Ross Island at the U.S. McMurdo Station, the main logistics hub that services nearly all of the scientific outposts on the continent.
Brian, when did you get into the Navy, and how did you get to Antarctica?
I enlisted in July of 1976. In order to go to Antarctica, you have to volunteer. It's not a duty station where you are ordered to go. I was able to get orders to Antarctic Development Squadron 6, which is referred to as VXE-6.
And its mission would be described as what generally?
The mission basically was supplying to out camps, science parties from McMurdo Station to South Pole, back and forth.
Talk about sort of the route and what you guys began to see on a repeated basis.
During our 95-96 season, my crew was doing a lot of back and forth to Pole. Mainly it was cargo resupply, personnel exchanges. That season, prior to us doing missions, we were told by some of our officers that if we saw something flying, that we weren't supposed to say anything.
Oh, so you knew that people were already warning about, but you had not seen.
Right. So somewhere around December, we were flying a mission from McMurdo, and my loadmaster in the back, he gets on the intercom on the ICS and he says, "Hey, there's something off to the left here kind of shimmering." So I went up to the flight deck and I'm looking out the big windows and I see these little disc-shaped objects. There was probably 4 or 5 of them, and they were, at first, when I first saw them, they were just stationary over one mountain peak. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at them and one of them takes off by itself and flies at incredible speed to the next mountaintop and stops. And then another one in the group takes off and heads toward where the first one went.
What did the pilot say?
That was kind of funny. My pilot gets on the intercom and he kind of jokingly goes, "Well, all I can tell you is they're not ours." Not ours? What are you talking about?
And it kept happening.
Yeah, so it happened at least 2 other times.
Brian feels that it is really important that the world know that there is something that is going on in Antarctica.
Los Angeles, California, November 25th, 2019. For more than a decade, image analyst Michael Bradbury has examined videos of alleged UFOs, looking for any signs that they could be something other than man-made aircraft. Intrigued by the recently released video shot from a Chilean Navy helicopter, he has invited astrophysicist Dr. Travis Taylor to join him and lend his expert opinion in examining the footage.
The Chilean helicopter video is really intriguing and fascinating because you have this vehicle or phenomena, whatever it is, and then it starts releasing some type of material behind it. So we absolutely need to understand what this phenomena is.
All right, here we go.
I'm not going into it with a belief that it is or isn't something.
No.
So let's apply our knowledge to it and see what we can come up with.
Everything I look at open-mindedly, you know, from a standpoint of we could be seeing something special here, you know, and then again, it could be a possible bird or a bug. That's always an option inside the atmosphere of planet Earth. It's just the way it is.
So this is from the a helicopter not far from Santiago.
Not far, November of 2014.
Okay.
There's the object. And it's only visible in infrared format.
And that's really intriguing. The high-def video, it's like it's not even there.
2 ground radar, didn't see it. The radar on the helicopter, could not pick it up. So super unique circumstances here.
You got 2 hot spots and they're separated. You know, that's intriguing.
It's probably very large because this is 35 miles away.
And how do we know for sure it's 35 miles away?
Based off of the captain that was flying the helicopter. That was his estimate.
I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Michael inverts the image so they can examine the object's shape more closely.
And what I've done here is taken the basic infrared and I've just kind of flipped it and adjusted it a little better for clarity purposes.
You can clearly see the shape of the vehicle or whatever the thing is. It's peanut-shaped. Why is it peanut-shaped?
The pilot, his description was it had a flat body with these 2, like, bright lenses or something?
You know, it kind of does look like two jet engines if you're looking at it from the back, but the motion on it looks like it's moving side to side, and the aspect ratio doesn't change on the circles. It's not going into the page as it should be. There's no other structure. That's the thing. If you would see wings, a nose cone, you wouldn't just see the engine. You can look at aircraft with an infrared camera and you see the structure because it's hot. You got sun shining on it. You got, you know, the engine, just the mechanics of it make it hot.
That's what I'm looking for here is reflectivity off of the physical structure.
And there's nothing. That kind of throws that idea out.
After isolating the object, Michael applies color filters to better define the object's unique heat signature for closer analysis.
Now this one is really interesting.
This is adjusted, not altered.
Sure, I got it. So you've got black is hot here, green is ambient temperature, I'm assuming, then white is cold.
Correct.
So here's the thing, there's clearly a field of cold air around this thing. That's baffling. This thing, it's hot and then instantly
cold.
It's cold. And in nature, that's not how things work.
No.
There is a different temperature bubble around the vehicle than there is around normal vehicles.
Exactly.
Which suggests some type of field, whatever that means. Could be, you know, electrical, magnetic, gravitational. We just don't know what it is, but there is some sort of clear anomaly in some sort of field around this craft. The most amazing thing from a scientific standpoint is some sort of low pressure or cold area immediately around whatever this phenomena is. And from a physics standpoint, we can't really explain what's causing that.
Fort Lauderdale, Florida, December 5th, 1945. 5 Navy Avenger bombers flying due east on a routine training mission encounter something strange over the Bermuda Islands. About an hour and a half into the flight, Squadron Leader Lieutenant Charles Taylor sends a radio transmission that his 2 onboard compasses have become inoperable.
Everybody got totally confused as to where they were. They were totally lost in an area where they should not have been lost. A whole squadron of US Navy aircraft just vanished. The fact that it was in this particular area obviously has given rise to the theory, could they have been abducted?
3 hours later, a rescue aircraft, a TBY Mariner with a crew of 11 aboard, disappeared with no trace. And what that caused is one of the most extensive search and rescue operations in the annals of the United States Navy. And they never found a life preserver, a piece of a wing, or anything from those aircraft, nothing. And to this day, we have no clue as to what happened.
But Flight 19 is only one incident in allegedly hundreds that have claimed victims in what is commonly referred to as the Bermuda Triangle. And according to ancient astronaut theorists, this site, which spans a 500,000 square mile area between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, plays host to numerous unexplained physical and metaphysical phenomena. Strange energies that may help to explain why pilots, sailors, and ship captains enter the area and are never seen or heard from again.
So you have to wonder, what's happening to these people? Is there something about the Bermuda Triangle? It's some kind of portal that aliens are using to come and go through hyperspace? And suddenly, you and your yacht or you and your plane are sucked into some other dimension. And you're not coming back.
The Bermuda Triangle is interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, it's not just one plane which goes missing somewhere. This is several planes which all disappear. Now the question is, where have all of them gone? It's not just the case that on occasion one of them is found. Really, an awful lot of what has gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle has never been seen, has never been heard of.
If an aircraft is flying over or a ship's sailing the ocean at the wrong time, could it pull them down underneath the water? So, you know, we're looking at possibly not abductions into the sky, but actually below the ocean.
Ancient astronaut theorists say the legend of the lost city of Atlantis may be connected to the possible abductions in the Bermuda Triangle. According to legends, the island of Atlantis was an enormous ancient power that thrived as far back as 9600 BC.
The story of Atlantis, which is one of the most famous mysteries from antiquity, the earliest sources we have on it is Plato. And the city was known for being a sort of a technological marvel in its own right. And at some point, for reasons that are not entirely clear, there was an eruption of some sort and the city disappeared.
We have no archaeological artifacts from Atlantis, and we don't know if it's just mythology. So is it possible, either through evil intentions or by accident, they sunk to the bottom of the ocean in the Bermuda area? And that's why we're experiencing, or pilots experiencing, all kinds of electrical interference when they fly over the Bermuda Triangle.
October 18th, 1947. The Astrakhan region of the former Soviet Union. From a military aerospace development lab known as Propulsion, scientists successfully launched their first long-range ballistic missile, a German A4 rocket. For the next decade, this will be the Soviet Union's only test site for ballistic missiles, and the beginning of a space program that put the first satellite and the first human being into space. Curiously, in 1948, Kapustin Yar was also the site of the Soviet Union's first reported UFO encounter. On June 19, 1948, a cigar-shaped object was detected by Soviet radar.
A silverish cigar-shaped object appeared over the testing grounds, and the Soviets tried to shoot it down. It's a highly classified case. We don't know exactly what happened, but allegedly they were able to actually shoot this object down. They found remnants of bodies in it, and also technology which was recovered and taken to the local bunker where they kept it allegedly for years and used it to reverse engineer some of the technology.
The Kapustin Yar incident allegedly took place within a year of the famous Roswell event. Both the CIA and the Soviet MGB intelligence agency took interest in what might have crashed and been retrieved in enemy territory.
You had American agents trying to find out what were the objects flying over the Soviet Union. At the same time, you had the Roswell incident in the United States. I can tell you that Stalin was very much interested, and he had espionage information delivered by his agents to him. We have proof of that. And he questioned Soviet academicians about the veracity of UFO threat to his country.
If stories of UFO crashes and retrievals in both the United States and the Soviet Union are true, could it have led to a collaboration between the world's only two superpowers? And considering the fact that the alleged incidents took place within a year of each other, might it have been part of an extraterrestrial agenda?
If there's a motivation of aliens or extraterrestrials in bringing these two superpowers together, it's to wake us up to recognize that, hey, once we get past all the artificial lines and borders on our planet and get out into space, that is the hope and promise of this collaboration.
If extraterrestrial spacecraft were purposely crashed in both the United States and the Soviet Union more than 70 years ago, Has the study of them led to technological breakthroughs that have been kept hidden from the public? And where have these alien visitors been during the 7 decades that have passed? Ancient astronaut theorists believe they have been here all along, and that recent events suggest they are ready to make their presence known to humanity once again. November 14th, 2004. 100 miles off the coast of Southern California. Fighter pilots with the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group engage incoming unidentified flying craft.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at the fly.
11 years later, in 2015, U.S. fighter pilots engage yet another UFO.
Look at that thing, dude. Well, if there's, look at that thing. It's rotating.
The accompanying report revealed fighter pilot accounts of the craft descending from altitudes of 60,000 feet to 50 feet in a matter of seconds, hovering or staying stationary on radar for short times, departing at high velocities and turn rates, and even cloaking. The release of what became known as the gimbal video was one of the most significant disclosures of government encounters with UFOs.
In the description, you're talking about maneuvers that would literally crush the spacecraft and kill any occupant. The only way you can circumvent that is if there's some sort of inertia dampening field around the craft itself, and that is, as far as we know, a technology that doesn't yet exist on this planet.
My gosh.
Reminiscent of the sport model Bob Lazar claims to have worked on at Area 51 S4, some of the crafts described in the DoD report were smooth, with no edges, uniformly colored with no nacelles, pylons or wings, and were approximately 46 feet in length. According to Lazar, at the core of its design was a nuclear reactor powered by element 115.
Element 115 was what we would call the fuel, what provided the power for the reactor to work. Element 115 affects gravity. Element 115 produces its own gravitational energy. The resulting gravity wave creates a distortion in front of it, allowing the craft to slide forward. And that's how it proceeds.
Although Lazar is adamant that he observed the sport model in flight, skeptics argue that anti-gravity propulsion is the stuff of science fiction. Or is it?